Hello and welcome back. So I got a lot of negative reviews on my video that I posted. I got lazy, all right? It made the video without the audio. I didn't want to redo it. Who wants to redo audio, all right? Look, I'm going to recreate this video. I'm going to go over why I put certain people in certain places and we'll go from there. So mine is Mellow Fellow. I play a lot of Arena because I really enjoy playing Arena. When I do play League of Legends, I'm either in Ranked or I'm in Arena, but 99% of the time I'm in Arena because Ranked is full of people that are toxic and it's just not fun for me. Uh, I got the Champion Ocean Mastery, which is 0.1%. Play different games with different champions. This is actually why I'm making the video. I got done playing Aurora twice now. I don't know why I don't have the upgraded version of that. So, and then place first in arena games with different champions. I got 31 out of 32. I would have had this numerous different times, but unfortunately I barely missed upgrading it a couple different times, which is also a 0.1% of players earned. And I also have the earned progress from challenges in the Arena Champion group, which is also Diamond and 0.1% of players earned. The reason I'm making this video is because I believe that I have quite a bit of insight when it comes down to the tier making of the champions and why and what they're at. I may not be the best player at the game, but I understand a lot of the core concepts of the game, right? So this is my same tier list from last time. So we're just gonna go over it straight down the list. So Dr. Mundo, just an absolute beast. You go straight tank on him, you grab up that one item that gives you like 1,000 health or whatever, and he's just super strong. No matter what augments you go with, you just go raw stats. He's an absolute monster. Same with Brand, you press R, and if the enemies are together, they literally just die. They melt, just like regular match. It's absolutely bonkers, right? Cho'Gath can literally eat someone at half health and one shot them. Yeah, obviously Cho'Gath at Z rank, right? Garen, he can go IE Garen, and it doesn't matter who he's with because his W gives him resistance and his Q gets him out of any stuns. He just instantly wipes the floor with anyone. It's absolutely crazy bonkers, right? Jack, same concept. He, because of his spin and being able to dodge all attacks and the fact that he can jump on people with certain augments, he literally, you cannot get him off of you. You cannot get him off of you. He goes absolutely crazy, one shots you if you're a squishy, which is what we're going to get more into as we get further down the line, right? Kled, you press R, you go all in, as Kled does. You find, you get someone else with you that goes all in, and you just dominate the match. Most people I've seen win on Kled. Kled, Brand, Garen. I've seen a lot of Veigar wins. I've seen a lot of Vi wins. All these champions that I put up here are champions that I saw a lot of wins with. Mordekaiser, same thing. He absolutely goes crazy, and the fact that he can solo 1v1 a person and do crazy damage to that person, it makes it so he's just absolutely bonkers. Pantheon, you get any like decent augments on him and he's just absolutely broken. The fact that he can stun consistently and does a lot of damage, and if you try to run away from him, he just hooks a Q at you and you die from range. It is what it is, right? So we got the red version of Kayn here. So red version of Kayn, he does tons of AoE damage and he knocks up, and his self healing is crazy. You go self healing on him at all, and then maybe grab up a few anti-tank items, he can melt almost anyone in the match, and his ult does crazy damage. Shaco, he will literally one-shot almost anyone below at A tier below. He does absolutely crazy damage. He can just go invisible with spam his invisibility late game. If he makes it past the early game into the later game, you're probably gonna hate Shaco. Shaco's like a perma ban for me. I personally don't like playing against him. I find it very just trolly. You can't catch him even when the circle closes in. You're sitting there getting spammed, stunned by his boxes. Swain's again, it's crazy healing. He does lots of damage. Veigar, we all know Veigar's overpowered. He just puts up his cage infinite amount of times and does crazy amount of damage. Vi does percent health damage and is crazy tanky and has so many catch-up abilities. It's crazy. Zuri, if you haven't played Zuri in this mode, she's a lot of fun. I don't know what it is about her, but she was just tons of fun. You're sitting there bouncing around, people can't catch you except for that stupid water map, right? And she is just super good. The only bad thing about her is she can be a little squishy, but you can outkite people super hard if you even somewhat know what you're doing with her. Uh, Ashkan is S rank in my eyes. He does tons of damage with, and you can literally just press E and then auto attack people, and you just press Q once, they're just dead. It's nuts, and they try to run away from you. Alt. uh, this guy, so Aryan Soul, I'm actually debating on putting him up here. Yeah, I think I'm gonna put him up here. The more I thought about it, the more I've ran into Aryan Souls that just straight up delete you. Their damage is just absolutely bonkers. They press R and then Q, and if you try to chase them, they can just fly away and shoot you at the same time. It's just not fun gameplay in a lot of different ways, right? Diana, she can do crazy damage, and she just immediately jumps on top of you. She gets somewhat decent augments, and she can just be a straight up powerhouse. Elise is, in my opinion, a very hidden S tier. She can absolutely outplay most champions in this game mode. The only bad thing is if she gets caught out of her spider form, she gets like deleted, right? But at the same time, you can totally outplay people if you even somewhat practice her play style. Galio is another one where he's just super tanky, does lots of damage for no reason. It's really hard to kill him. Gragas, really tanky, does lots of damage, deletes most people. Gwen, in my opinion, lots of fun in this game mode. She gets somewhat decent augments, especially like attack speed and stuff, or like cooldown reduction, and you're just like Hikarum, you literally press R, spam your Q, and you win. It's crazy. Aurelia, of course, Aurelia's up here, right? She's absolutely bonkers. Her damage is nuts. She auto attacks you to death, stuns you, jumps on top of you. J4, if you haven't tried J4 and gone pure damage with him, you're not having fun. You're not having fun with this game. You're sitting here, I don't know what you're doing. Go pure damage on J4, press R, watch their health get deleted, auto attack them, and it's hilarious. Katarina, everybody knows Katarina, press E, press R, right? Bait out their stunts. But the bad thing about Katarina is that if they're really aware of you pressing E, pressing R, then you will end up just getting deleted. There's nothing you can do about it. That but I've seen some really good Katarina players, and there's Katarina's not hard to play, and if they're not focused on you and you have the chance to press R right in the middle of their team, you're gonna win. Lilia is probably one of the funnest champions in this mode as well. She just, her mobility is crazy. Her ability to stun, and then you just whap, and you just watch them get deleted. Lux, I put up here in S tier. The only reason she's not in Z tier is because she's squishy. The moment you get on top of her, she just gets deleted. But other than that, you can sit there and kite. If you do a Morgana Lux combo, my god, they can't move. They're just dead. I've seen this combo right here, Morgana Lux win, more times than I can count. If it wasn't for them being individual champions and people always played them together, I'd put them in Z rank easily. Malphite, again, you press R, and as long as they don't flash or dodge your R, because it's hard to dodge, a lot of people have a hard time dodging it, right? They just don't expect it. They get deleted. And then if you have a good follow-up like Yasuo or something, then it's just extra deleted. Malazar, you literally hold someone still for the entire match, and unless someone wants to build a Zephyr for a one-time use ult that you're gonna have up more than once in the match if you hit the plants, Malazar sucks to play against in a lot of time, like a lot of different ways, but that's okay. Olaf, literally ignore all CC, W key your opponent and then rush thin. He's like the ultimate counter to Olaf. The only bad thing about, or I'm sorry, Veigar, but the only bad thing about Olaf is the fact that if you press R2 early and you don't have your ult, they will just kill you. There's nothing you can do. You are a very slow champion. You cannot stay on top of them unless you get good augment speed, runes, good movement speed augments. It's kind of rough. Rammus, dude, he's the most brutal tank ever. He literally counters everyone in A tier, in my opinion. It's just so dumb. He walks up to you, taunts you, you beat yourself to death, and then he continues to chase you down and beat you to death with your own abilities. If you are AD and there's a Rammus in the game, you're about to have a bad game. There's really, unless you're a Vayne or maybe like a Twitch or something. But carrying on, Set. He just does absolute bonker damage. He walks up to you, auto attack. Set has the problem of having to wait till the circle kind of closes in to maximize his damage, or he gets really good movement speed augments. This will help you out a lot. So Sion, the fact that he has an after death, he does crazy damage. He takes no damage. And then when you finally kill him, he turns into a freaking unstoppable monster that just walks around beating you to death. Yeah, it's super fun, let me tell you. So Garner, same problem. I put him in the S tier, but I actually think that Skarner is gonna go down to A tier. He just doesn't do the damage that these S and Z tiers do, and his stunning ability requires a wall, and if you mess that up, then you're just SOL. And if you miss his ult, it's just even worse. Sona, in my opinion, hidden S tier. I don't know why people don't play her more. She was so much fun. I played her a couple different times, and every time I was like, man, why do people not play this character more? I think I won like 2 or 3 times on her, and she just dominates. Dominates. The amount of damage she does and the amount of healing, and if you get enough mana and you get enough augments reducing your abilities, man, you're just do. It's crazy. Sylas, of course, everybody knows Sylas is S tier. He does crazy damage, and he steals your opponent's best ult every single match. He always has the best ult. So it's one of the biggest problems with Sylas is depending on who you're fighting is depending on how good you're going to be, right? But at the same time, his self-healing is crazy, his damage is crazy. Tahm Kench, I don't know what it is about this champion. He just does nuts damage. I don't feel like a tank should be able to press Q once and hit you for half of your HP bar. It's just bonkers. He has AoE stunning. He can save his ally. Tahm Kench is a really good champion if you want basic and simple. Same thing with Trundle. Basic and simple, easy. Press W, walk in, mash your Q button when it's off cooldown, and then throw up a pillar if they try to run away. Whack, 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 whack. Make sure your R is up, and you literally win every single fight. Trundle is like the ultimate 1v1 champion, but if people are smart and outplay your ult and kite out your ult the best they can, then a lot of times Trundle will lose. So Tryndamere, same thing, right? If they know about your ult and are prepared for it, they'll do okay. But then you can get that augment that allows you to have double ults. That is bonkers. You can just straight up win any 1v1 fight because it's an unexpected extra, 4 seconds of invulnerability, and you're doing crazy damage. Yeah, have fun with that. Mr. Twitch here. The ability to go invisible and also pump from the other side of the mountain or other side of whatever and do crazy damage, and if you try to run away from him, he just presses E and you die. Yeah, he's a really good fun champion. The only thing that makes him bad is the fact that he's super squishy, but because of his invisibility, it kind of plays around that squishy, if that makes any sense. Urgot is super fun. He can just ultimately tank anything, and if you get this one specific item on him that increases your movement speed per attack, then he can literally just run around the entire map. He's like one of the fastest champions if you get that one specific item on him, and it's hilarious. But not only that, but he is just a juggernaut. He is just super tanky. He can just do all sorts of damage because he does percent health damage, right? So it's and he can execute with his R. So Vayne does, of course, Vayne's up here. The only bad thing about Vayne is she's squishy, right? The only reason I put her in S tier is because she can counter almost every single one of these higher end champions. So she has the ability to just, auto attack people to death because of her percent health damage. And as long as they're smart and they're using their R with their auto attack and mashing their Q button, and then if they get close, you just press E, right? So you can just melt people, especially with specific items and specific augments. Your attack speed can be so crazy, you can just and it's like a machine gun, and they just instantly die. It's nuts. The same thing with Khan here. So Volibear, this man just does crazy damage and is super tanky. Are you noticing a theme here? Lots of damage, lots of tanky. It's a consistent thing. And despite the fact that you have champions like Fiona, who can counter that kind of thing, but the thing is like they can also out damage you in a 1v1 fight. So even though other champions do percent health damage, it doesn't matter because he can just auto attack you to death, and and go pure tankiness, and you just lose. Warwick, of course, Warwick's up in the S tier. His healing is crazy. His damage is crazy. You get any abilities that reduce his W or reduce his Q, you're almost freaking invincible unless someone is like a Vayne or someone who does crazy high DPS. Zen, the ability to jump on top of you, stay on top of you, and then press R and avoid damage from anyone else. He is another really strong 1v1 champion who just doesn't really take a lot of damage. You can sit there and mash your W if someone tries to run away, and it is what it is. Yasuo, again, he just walks up to you. He can just auto attack you to death. The same thing with Yone. Yone's auto attacks are just nuts. But Yasuo, there's so many knockups, and the fact that he can also ult off of the red cherries makes it so that he's super strong. The armor pen is off of his ult. It makes him even better. His wind wall negating so much damage. Obviously, Yasuo is S tier, right? Same thing with Yone. The ability to press R and basically delete, and then delete and CC an entire team is just whatever. He just does crazy damage for no freaking reason. I think League pushes these champions because they look cool. I don't know. Zyra, if you haven't ever played Zyra in this mode, she's crazy good. Her plants, you can just go pure percent health damage and health, and her plants will literally just kill everything. And if she gets specific augments that increase her plants, there's ones that make her plants like really big. She just deletes everything in her path. And then whoever your ally is, if they also do lots of AoE damage, there's no winning. There's no winning. So, Aatrox. I got judged really hard for putting Aatrox in the A tier, but hear me out. I rarely ever saw good Aatroxes. In fact, they're incredibly easy to outplay if it's a bad Aatrox. Now, I'm not saying that Aatrox is a bad champion by any stretch of the imagination. What I'm saying is that most people's ability to do well on this champion is not that great. I don't believe he's much better than an A tier. You rarely see him get past 5th place, and he can't just walk up and auto attack people because that's not how his kit is built. His Q does all of his damage, but his Q is very easy to miss, and his W is very easy to miss. His E is very clunky for a lot of people. They don't know how to use it. That's one of my biggest problems with Aatrox and why I put him in the A tier instead of like S tier. He does a lot of damage, but you have to land your abilities. He's so skill based, and anybody who's really good with him, I love watching players that are really good with Aatrox. He can just absolutely do crazy damage. Ashe, if it wasn't for her being squishy, she would go straight up to S tier. The fact that anyone can jump on top of her and she just get instantly deleted, that's the problem, right? Really good Ashes can just out-kite you, but even in the late game, a lot of these like S and Z champions, they'll just press one button, you're dead. It's kind of silly. Same thing with Bel'Veth here. If she doesn't have her ult, she just doesn't do a lot of damage. And if people know that you're not in your ult, they just go all in on you and you die. And if you're not a very good Vel'Veth and don't know how to use her jumping ability very well, then you're just straight up dead. This is why I put a lot of the squishies in the A tier, is because yeah, they can be good, and I've seen some of them win. But the problem is like if people know that you're super squishy, they'll just get on top of you, delete you. They won't hesitate. And there's certain maps that if you get on them, you just immediately lose. Like that water map, if you don't outplay the person like really well on that water map, the one that has the flower in the middle, you just immediately lose no matter what. It's bonkers with most of these like squishy ADCs. And same thing with Katarina. Caitlyn. So she is really good, but one of her biggest problems, again, squishy, right? But her traps kind of accommodate for that. But Caitlyn is one of the few I was debating and putting into S tier, but you don't see a lot of them get really high up in the ranks unless they play like really, really well. The problem is not a lot of people play Caitlyn very, very well in this mode. There's a lot of people that aren't like one trick ponying these champions in this arena mode. A lot of these players aren't players that are playing the regular Rift every day. A lot of these players are ones that are playing arena because it's freaking fun. It's something different, and League of Legends has been around for so long, right? And I've been around since Jinx came out, which was a long time ago. 2016, 2012 or something like that. I don't remember. So, and then Cassiopeia, if you miss her ult, and if people predict your ult, you just immediately die if you don't land a good W. You're just too squishy. You can do decent damage, but you won't be able to survive if they get on top of you and you miss your ult. Corki is actually a really good champion. I'm actually debating on putting Corki into S tier. He's like a secret hidden champion. He does so much damage. I don't know why people don't play him more often. He has quite a bit of mobility as well. And with specific augments, of course, you can just do crazy bonker damage, but it's not the most necessity thing. Darius, I put him in A tier. A lot of people yeah, he does lots of damage early game, and yeah, he can do really well, but one wrong builded item on him, and he just goes to trash. I've seen it so many times where Darius will be doing really good early game, and then once you roll into late game, I actually just had this when I was playing Aurora. He just does no damage. He does no damage. If you mess up on his build even a little bit, a lot of times he will just do no damage. Draven, same thing. You can do crazy, absolute crazy bonker damage on Draven, but if you don't know how to land his axes and you don't know how to somewhat bounce around his thing, which is kind of hard to do when you're getting constantly stunned or something, you just get deleted. Same problem, right? Israel, same problem. Yeah, he can be really good, but unless you get specific augments that like reduce your E cooldown to make it where you can just bounce around him wherever, then you're just a squishy target that's going to die. There's too many of these super strong, jumpy champions that are just going to delete you. It doesn't matter. Fiora, once you use your W, if you don't use your W wisely and you get that stun, most times you're going to die because you don't know that the amount of damage you put out is not better than the damage to put out than most of these other champions. So they'll just delete you. Again, it's one of the biggest problems with this mode is that these champions that scale really hard off of like attack speed or armor or whatever, these champions don't compare. And Fizz can be really good, but I don't find his damage output good enough in order to be closer to the S ranks and stuff. Once they get on top of you, you just die, right? Gnar is a lot of fun in this game mode, but he's so heavily reliant on like his mode, and if you miss his ult at all, which I don't know how you would, but a lot of people, I've seen it happen, and if you miss his ult, you're just gonna lose because again, you're a squishy target. Even when you're in Gnar form, a lot of times you can be pretty squishy. And if they jump on top of you before you get to transform, you're just extra dead. Graves can do a lot of damage, but he can be really squishy. I've seen really good Graves. I've seen that Graves push up to like more S tier-ish rank, but not a lot of people are that great on Graves, and or they don't know that his Q can immediately go off if you shoot it into a wall, and or they totally just miss his ult. I think it's one of his biggest problems with him is that he actually requires somewhat skill, right? So Alawi can be a lot of fun, but if people are smart and play around your tentacles, she's pretty mediocre. That's why she's an A tier. Jhin, he can do a lot of damage and he can jump around the map really easily, but he's squishy. Just gets on top. Jinx, same problem. She can do lots of damage. I have lots of fun on Jinx. She's squishy. They press one button, you get deleted. Kai'Sa, same problem. You do lots of damage, but it doesn't matter. They just jump on top of you. The moment they get on top of you, if some people will even outweight the circle, and if you get close enough to pop the bush, they'll just all in you, and then you die. So either they'll outweight the circle, or they'll wait for you to get close enough to where they can just kill you. Uh, Kai'Sa, Kalista, same problem. She can be a lot of fun, and she can do a lot of damage, and she can do a lot of things that allow her to just do crazy bonker damage, but it doesn't matter because you just get deleted. Karma can actually be really good, but if you don't land your Qs, and if people are aware of your Qs, and especially your upgraded Qs, you don't do any damage. And if you use your ult on your shield, you don't do any damage, and then you get deleted. Kayle can absolutely scale to end game, but if she doesn't do well early game, she's gonna probably lose. It's really hard for a Kayle to pop off unless you have like a good teammate or something that just kind of helps you get to that late game. But if you can get to late game with Kayle, it's over. I mean, it's over. She is one of the strongest champions. She just absolutely deletes almost anything, unless it's like one of these like Z rank champions. Then it doesn't matter. They'll just delete you first. Kindred can do a lot of deleting. His ult is really strong for preventing getting deleted. But again, if people outplay it, either push you out of your ult and or just know the timing better than you. You have to know his timing really well with his ult, and then the moment his ult ends, you like flash away or you Q away and then just get out of their range. Then you'll do really well with him. But if you're not on top of that, you're gonna lose with him. Leo, she does crazy decently high damage and she's super tanky. But the problem with Leo is she doesn't do enough damage compared to like these other high-end tanks. She can do really good damage and she stuns a lot, but if you get someone that can just out damage your stuns because you don't do a lot of damage versus they'll win in a 1v1 almost every time. Leo is like should I put her in S tier? Should I keep her in A tier? Back and forth, right? Lucian gets deleted, does decent damage. Nasus, he can do really well and his W is crazy good, but one of the biggest problems with Nasus is that if he'll just get kited. If your W, like if you don't make it past mid game, you just lose. You have to like play really well at the beginning into mid game, and then if you can make it into the late game, you'll do really well. But once some of these other champions will just delete you. I mean, it doesn't matter that you can slow them down. It doesn't matter that you can slow their attack speed down. They'll just walk over, delete you, and they'll out kite you. And then if they get stunned by your W, they'll just either throw you away or stun you or whatever, or they have more mobility because of augments or whatever. So it really just depends on. Nasus is very like augment heavy, like depending on what you get. Nidalee can be a lot of fun. Throwing a Q over, deleting people, super fun. I think she can. She can literally one shot a squishy. It's hilarious to watch, but at the same time, if they just jump on top of you and get on top of you, then most of the time you just die. Nylea can be really good, but once her shroud is over, you just die. Nocturne, he all ends. If your teammate's not on top of it, you just die. Nunu can be really good, but if you don't have your bite up or your snowball, then you just die. Let's see, Poppy can be really good, does lots of damage, but she's very squishy for like a tanky champion. She doesn't have a lot once you use her E, and then you're just kind of standing there auto attacking them, waiting for your Q to come back up. But if they're smart and they keep dodging your Q, then you do no damage. See the problem here? Pyke, I put Pike in the A tier because he's squishy. A lot of these other champions, once they see him, they'll just delete him. That's how it works with Pike. He is really annoying to play with, but if you just play circle, let the circle close in, he can't run away from you. He can't invisible spam, but he can use his Q and try to knock you out of the arena, or E to stun you, but it doesn't really matter if you just delete him, right? Rakan is actually really fun, really good. You don't ever see Rakans in this mode, but he's actually a lot of fun to play because he can just jump all over the place. He does decent damage, but he doesn't do enough damage for me to slide him into the S tier or anything. Renekton, he has his stun and he has his ult to make him do pretty good damage, but he's a very squishy bruiser and he can just get deleted. Riven, she is, a lot of people might disagree with me on this one, but I don't find her an S tier unless you're like a one-trick pony. Not everybody knows to auto-attack Q, auto-attack Q, auto-attack W, auto-attack. Not everybody knows that crap, alright? Not everybody knows that. Oh, but she should be higher. No, just no. Stop. She's a really good champion when you play her really well. She's like an Aatrox, right? Can be really well if you play her really well. But a lot of people are trash on her. You got Rumble, who can do crazy damage, crazy AoE damage, but if people are smart and play around your ult, and they just stay out of your ult, and then engage on you when you're on fire, when you have your red bar, you're just dead. Sejuani, she can all-in you, stun you quite a bit, do decent damage, but one of her problems is she doesn't do enough damage in comparison to a lot of these other tanks, or these other tanks can just out-heal you. You can't do enough damage quickly enough to actually do something. If you go all AP, you're too squishy. Seraphine, she's actually really good as well. I wouldn't say One of the problems with Seraphine is she's really good, but if you're missing her Qs or if they just jump on top of you, you get deleted. This is the only reason I'm debating on putting Sona down a rank. I'm really debating on whether or not Sona and S tier. I just had so much fun on her, and I won so many matches with her. I was surprised. I don't know. Seraphine just feels really clunky. Her abilities feel not as good. You can't mash them like you can with Sona, right? So we got Shyvana. So she is really good, does lots of damage, but if you go full AP, you get deleted, and if you miss your W, then you get deleted, and if people are smart and just play around your ult, and once you all in, they just delete you if you're AP, and if you go full tank mode, you can do a lot of damage, but a lot of these other champions do more damage than you and can tank your damage. It's a mess. Sivir, same thing as the other ADCs. She can do really, really good damage, and her W prevents her from getting hit, and her ult makes you and your teammate really fast, right? But at the same time, if they just outwait your ult or wait in a bush or wait for you to try and engage and then they all in you, you're dead. I mean, that's, again, one of the biggest problems with ADCs. Teemo, don't let him set up shrooms. You just get on top of him. Don't let him set up shrooms. Don't be annoyed by his, silence or his Q. Outwait it. And then if you can shut a Teemo down so early, if people don't let him build up his shrooms, but the moment you do and he starts making it mid to late game, you're screwed. I mean, Teemo can do so much damage with his shrooms. One of the biggest things I see with Teemo's is people are so scared of him that they play so passively that they let him build up so many shrooms or hit them with so many free shrooms that they just lose. It's just how it is. Tristana, I was debating on actually putting into S tier because she can do crazy damage and she can push away her opponent and jump away, but if people are smart, they can catch you mid-jump, and it's pretty easy to do that, and there's certain maps that it doesn't matter if you try to jump away, they can just immediately get right back on top of you. Again, a lot of these jumpy champions, right? They'll just get right back on top of you. It doesn't matter, and some of them are so tanky that it doesn't matter. Udyr, if Udyr was a little more mobile, he can go really fast, and if you get certain augments, he can go pretty fast, right? But he just doesn't feel very good if they're kiting you really well because he doesn't have a lot of ways of catching up to you beyond just, speed running you. But if you can get some decent speed augments, he can be really good. But I just didn't feel that it was right to put him into the S tier. That's my personal opinion. A lot of people would probably see him up here in the S tier. That's okay. Vex was a lot of fun. She can actually do quite a bit of damage. She feels a little clunky in arena because her cooldowns are so high, but once you start to get into late game, you can actually do just nuts damage. If you can get into mid to late game, Vex is a lot of fun. Same thing with Viego. Mid to late game, crazy, fun. The problem with Viego, really squishy. Viego just gets deleted. If there's no bodies for you to take over, you just get deleted. It's not fun. Wukong can do crazy damage, can mash his W, keep going invisible, but if people are smart, they can either A, outweight the circle, or B, they'll just delete you as soon as you come out of invisibility because Wukong's like really squishy for some reason. So if you build him kind of bruisery, you don't do a lot of damage. I feel like he got nerfed at some point because he didn't feel very good, but maybe that's just my personal opinion. Zaya, she can do lots of damage. Her ult prevents her from being hit, right? E can stun, but if people avoid your feathers and or if you don't get more than 2 auto attacks off before they jump on top of you and delete you, then you die. I put Yuumi in A tier because I hate her. Let's face it, she's probably like an S tier because she just connects to whoever she's connected to, and screw that champion. But I don't like Yuumi, so she's not going higher than A tier. Screw that cat. Zed, he can do really well. A lot of people will probably disagree with me putting him in the A tier, but not everybody does faker stuff on him. Not everybody's really good. In fact, 90% of the people I watch play him are just not well with him. They don't do well with him. They don't use his ult very well. They don't use his W very well, and he just gets deleted if you're not playing well with him. So, Skarner, I already did Skarner. Ahri, I put Ahri in B tier, and I think that's silly. So Ahri is really mobile, has a lot of damage. Why did I put her B tier? Was I tired? Was I tired? Because Ahri's like A tier, possibly even S tier, because she does lots of damage. Her kiss, her E does, the ability to like CC them the entire time makes it really nice. And she has lots of mobility. She can get deleted pretty easily, but if you play somewhat decent, you don't even have to play that great on her, but she does lots of damage for no reason. That's what it feels like anyways. Amumu, he is pretty good, but he just doesn't do enough damage leading into mid to late game. His damage kind of falls off, and unless you get like really good augments, he kind of just falls off. Same thing with Anivia. She can do really well, like kind of mid-ish game. She can do really well late game, but you have to get like really specific, like you have to specific build with her, and you have to get somewhat decent augments. I've seen tanky Anivia, and that's hilarious because she can just survive out in the zone. So if you ever want to go like Sion and Anivia, that combo is super fun. I've seen people play it and they just destroy on it. Annie, she can do lots of damages. I'm actually going to move Annie up here to A tier. What was I thinking? So Annie does lots of damage. Her ability stun. The only problem with her is she's really squishy, right? But if you land your R into a Q and then your teammate follows up, that person just immediately dies. I have no idea what I was thinking there. B tier, silly me. Bard, not a lot of people play Bard well, and he is super squishy. Blitz, he can do somewhat decent, and he can mash and stun lock, but he doesn't really do damage into late game, and you just get deleted by these later ranged champions. And if you miss your Q, which everybody expects your Q into 4K rating or plus, then you just get deleted. Fiddlesticks, his kit feels super clunky in this. Everybody expects your ult, and if they don't expect your ult, then yeah, you can actually do something. But if they do expect your ult, they just either CC it or avoid it or whatever, and then you lose. What was I thinking? Yeah, no. Heimerdinger, I'll keep him in A tier. The problem with Heimerdinger, right, is if they kill your turrets, which a lot of champions do a lot of AoE damage, especially these ones up here, right? Then you do no damage. But if you can set up your turrets and get somewhat decently powerful, you can just sit in your turrets and you immediately win. Jace, his damage is lackluster unless you play him really well. He just doesn't do very well. Kennen, I will actually move Kennen up to at least A tier because he can stun lock, he can do AoE damage, he does do decent like mobility, so he can do all that. The problem with Kennen is he's very squishy, right? Lissandra, her ult literally locks someone down. I don't know why I put her in B tier either. What am I thinking? I mean, I must have been tired when I was making my list the first time, which is why I didn't even want to fix the audio, right? So Lissandra, I'd put her into A tier as well. She does lots of damage, and her ult has the ability to just lock someone down, which is really nice. And as long as your teammate somewhat follows up, you'll delete the person. But again, squishy. If you don't use her W well, you just get jumped on top of and you die. Forgot her name for a second. Lulu. So Lulu is really good. She can polymorph, but once the polymorph is over, her damage is lackluster. She just doesn't really help her teammate much, and if her teammate doesn't follow up with the polymorph, you're just extra screwed. Malphite, I'm actually going to slide him up into A tier. He's tanky, does decent damage. He just falls off kind of mid to late game. His damage kind of falls off, and his healing isn't that great if people have anti-healing items. Master Yi, what was I thinking? Master Yi is definitely an A tier. He's super easy to play. I might even move. I'm going to keep him in A tier because he has the same problem as Ahri and Aatrox, right? If you time your Qs as Master Yi to avoid abilities, then you'll do really well with him. But if you don't time your Qs very well, then you're just going to get deleted because he's a very squishy champion. Let's see here. Miss Fortune, why would I put her in B tier? So Miss Fortune is really good, does lots of damage. Again, problem, same as Ashe, right? Just gets deleted. Immediately gets deleted if they jump on top of you. I'm not going to keep explaining that part. Nami can do lots of damage, but you miss her Q once and you just die. Nautilus, he doesn't do a whole lot of damage. His tankiness outweighs his damage. Yeah, sure, you can CC stun someone, and if you have a really hard carry with you, they'll help you win. But most times you don't have a hard carry with you because other people are also playing random champions. So if you're in a duo, great. If you're not so much. Orianna, her kit feels pretty clunky. A lot of people won't be very good with her, and her damage just doesn't feel that great until you're into like late game, and then by then people are deleting you, right? I personally am gonna keep her in the B tier. Ornn, I think he can do decent damage. I actually would move him up here to A tier just because he's a tankier champion. Not quite sure what I was doing there. So Ornn can do a lot of damage. Ornn can CC spam, and his items are better than normal, and he can upgrade his teammates' items. The only problem is a lot of these other champions will just out-kite him. He has a really hard time with mobility, getting on top of the enemy champions. Qiyana or whatever her name is, she does decent in this mode, but the problem is you miss her ult and you're just basically useless. Her W feels really clunky because of the way the elements are inside, because some maps have certain elements and others don't, and because is that it just feels really clunky in my opinion. Let's see here. Quinn, I don't feel like that's her name, but that's okay. That's what we're gonna go with right now. So Quinn can do decent damage. Her Q making it so they can't see is really annoying, but if people don't get overwhelmed by her Q, her ult is useless. Her Q only lasts for like 1 second. The moment her Q is over, you just get on top of her and kill her. I mean, most of these champions will have no problems with her, and most of these champions can easily dodge around her Q, which is her only like decent thing in her kit other than her pushback, right? Rek'Sai can do decent knock-up, do decent damage. I'm actually going to move Rek'Sai over here because she can do lots of damage. She has the tunnels that allows for mobility on the somewhat bigger maps, and she is able to get somewhat decent augments and do lots of damage. Let's see. I don't remember what her name is, but she is a pretty decent champion, but her kit feels very clunky in this, and she just doesn't do a lot of damage. I tried to go like pure damage on her, it didn't work. I tried to, like, my ult would hit them and they wouldn't do any damage to them for some reason. I don't know if she got nerfed or what happened there. Kayn, he can do really well. I'm actually going to move Blue Kayn up here into A tier because he can delete most of these other champions and do really well against them, but one of his biggest problems is that he gets deleted, right? Same thing with Samira. I don't know what I was thinking there. Why did I put her in the B tier? She's like an S tier champion in regular. So Samira is really good, but her all-in kit, if you don't have a teammate that also all-ins with you, you'll just get deleted by all these higher end champions. She can do really well, but meh. Senna, so she can do really well, but once you run out of your W, if people are smart, they'll just jump on top of you. They'll delete you. Your alt's cast time makes it really clunky, especially if you try to cast it when they're already on top of you. They'll just avoid it completely, and then they'll just kill you. Currently don't remember her name. I'm drawing a blank, but that's okay. I think that this champion actually belongs more in the A tier. She can do lots of damage, and it doesn't really matter that you have your puddles. One of the biggest problems with her, right, is when you use your Q, it gives that puddle on the ground. But the moment that you're playing on like a smaller map and you can only shoot out one Q at a time because it's hard to maneuver around, then her damage gets heavily negated, and her ult is pretty mediocre. It doesn't really help in most case scenarios. Most times you'll use it to either engage or run away, and then you'll either get stunned off of it or whatever, right? Her W into E combo can be really good, but most people will expect that, and if you have been losing the early games, you won't be doing any damage mid game. Like, it's a totally avoidable. I've watched a Vi just totally ignore that mechanic, Q right through it, and they were just like, haha, okay. Let's see here. So Taric can do you really good, but other than a support champion, he just doesn't do a lot of damage. Unless you straight up build him damage, but if you build him damage, then he's not tanky. His ult is really nice for survivability, but if people just outlast that, or if they see it, they just immediately run away, or if they see it, they just play around it or whatever, or they expected it, then you're just totally useless. Thresh can do lots of damage. He's really fun to go pure AD on, but again, he doesn't do a lot of damage. That's one of his biggest problems, right? Twisted Fate, I'll move Twisted Fate up here to A tier because he can do decent damage, and he has his W that can pick yellow card and stun lock, right? But some people, not a lot of people, but some people actually struggle to select a card mid battle, and I've noticed a lot of people in Arena that try to play him, I think there's too much going on, and then they select the wrong card, and then they like throw a blue card, and it's just like, very nice, very nice. And then they get deleted, right? Varus, I would actually move Varus up here. He does lots of percent health damage. One of his biggest problems is that his cooldowns are kind of long, so he feels really clunky in Arena until like mid to late game. If you can make it mid to late game with him, he'll do really well, but he's really squishy early game and doesn't do like the craziest amount of damage. Vel'Koz, I'll actually move him up to A tier as well. So Vel'Koz, he can do lots of damage. His abilities feel a little clunky. The fact that he can stay on the other side of the map and just Q spam you and do lots of damage and do that, and if you're not ready for his ult, he can delete you. But one of his biggest problems is that they can just outweight the circle, and or if they get straight on top of you, like a lot of these jumpy champions, that you're just dead. You're just dead. Yeah, I mean, there's nothing you can do about it. Viktor, I think his kit feels really clunky in Arena, and it feels nice, but unless you're like a one-trick pony on him, I just don't see most people doing well on him. He he just doesn't do enough damage in comparison to like these ADCs where they'll just delete you. You put down your W and you're like, oh, I'm gonna do so good, and then they just auto attack you to death, or they jump on top of you and you die. I mean, there's nothing else you can do since you have to wait for your W to stun, right? So, uh, let's see, Vlad. I don't know if this is just me, but I did not like Vlad in Arena at all. Every single Vlad I've seen, most of them do absolutely poorly, and he feels super clunky in Arena. His abilities are just super long on cooldown. If you get into like late game, sure, he's decent, but like it's hard to get into late game with a champion that does so poorly early game, in my opinion. Zayrath, if you miss his E, you're dead. I mean, he can do decent damage, but you miss your E, and he doesn't have mobility augments, you're dead. Yorick, I'm actually going to move Yorick up here. If they know about your ult, and they kill your ult, then you're pretty freaking mediocre at best. But if they don't kill your ult, you can just delete someone. But one of the biggest problems with Yorick is he feels like he gets easily kited. The moment you miss your cage, you just can't really stay on top of them. They just outrun you. And if you miss your E for the slow, then they just really outrun you or outkite you, right? So Zac, I'm gonna move him up here to A tier as well because he is tanky. He does do decent damage, but his damage really falls off mid to late game. He doesn't continue doing decent damage unless you're like way ahead of everyone. Ziggs can be really good. He does decent damage, but he has like the same problem with Zayrath, right? If you don't use your W to bounce away really smartly, then you're probably going to die. Akali, probably move her up to B tier. She does decent damage. I'm actually going to move Akali up here to A tier because she counters a lot of these like ADC type champions. So if she's smart, she'll kind of wait more to like when the circle is closing in a little, because then she can bounce around and have a more strategic view of what's going on. But like whatever she was doing when it comes down to doing damage, if she screws up and she doesn't utilize her shroud well enough, then you're just gonna get deleted. I mean, once people see you, you're gonna die. So you have to be kind of careful with her shroud, and if you don't utilize her W, if you don't know how to use her Q very well, and she's a very skill-based champion. Just put her up here. Put her up there. So yeah, other than knocking people out of the arena, he's mediocre at best. He can do okay, but if people know that you're just going to be doing that, then they'll just charge you. You don't really do a lot of damage. You can stun, but they'll kill your teammate and then kill you. Azir, I'll actually move him up to B tier. He's kind of with these other squishy mages. He can do really well, but if you don't play him really well, he takes a lot of skill and he's really squishy. Karthus, Echo, I'll put up here to B tier. He does percent health damage, can move mobility, does decent, can stun, but his W takes a while to pop off, and if people are anticipating your R, then you don't do any damage with it. It's kind of how it works out. Debating on putting him in the A tier. Not sure what I was thinking with some of these champions, but that's okay. Karthus, we'll move him into the squishy / mage category with the others, right? Kha'Zix, we'll move him into the B tier because if he can get any of these champions alone, great, he can delete them. But a lot of times they're not alone. They're either on top of each other or they're just going to kite you, and then there ain't much you can do. We'll move Mr. Can't remember, Kog'Maw up here to B tier. I don't know why I had him in C tier. He's really squishy, but the fact that his passive still makes him revolve around him dying makes him mediocre. I feel like they should do something closer to like what Sion has and make it so that he has like reduced range, turns him into like a dead ghoul or something. That'd be kind of cool. But he can do lots of damage. I'm gonna move him into the A tier just because he can do lots of damage. I'm thinking this. Yeah, I'm thinking this. Echo in the A tier, Kog'Maw in the B tier. If you don't pop off early game with Kog'Maw, you're just gonna lose because he doesn't do any damage. And late game, he just gets deleted by all these other champions. LeBlanc, I'll slap her in the B tier with these other like squishy mages, but one of the biggest problems is like, yeah, she has that invisibility and she has mobility. They outweight the circle, you're screwed. Nothing you can do. And the fact that you have to be so close to them to do most of your damage, if they're smart, they just wait to engage and or they engage when you try to engage. Lee Sin, because he has no wards to bounce off of, and most of your teammates play like a bunch of potatoes, he is not going to be that great in my opinion. He requires too much skill. I mean, when I say skill, I mean landing your Q isn't really difficult, right? Landing a Q and then pressing R into another Q, but like his W is basically meh and his E is meh. You can jump to your ally and that's about it. But if your ally's in a bad spot and already getting attacked, you're just gonna extra die. Uh, Nico, I'll put her in with the other mage category. Does really well, can jump around and whatnot, but like her, you know, ability to change into things is kind of meh. Most people will see through it. Rengar, I think that I was wrong putting Rengar in the C tier. We'll move him up to at least the A tier because he can delete most of these like squishy ADC type champions, but once his invisibility ends, he does become like super squishy. I do think it was kind of a joke to not at least put Rengar up here. I don't know what I was thinking there. For some reason I must have been tired with some of these champions. I'm not sure what I was doing. I just didn't think this video would even pop off, to be honest. So let's see here. Rise, we'll wait for him to get buffed, and then all of a sudden he'll jump up to Z tier. But until then, he's going to stay down here in the nice little B tier with the other squishy mages. Shen, we'll move him up into the B tier. He's kind of along with these other tankies that do no damage, right? Syndra, you know, squishy mage. Talon, we'll move him up into the A tier because he can kind of delete most of these A tier champions. And as long as he's not totally dumb, then he will do decent damage and continue to do really well with that. So, and then Zilean, Zilean just, I'll put him with the squishy mages. You know, he can do okay, but most of the time you don't see Zileans play with their R very well. In fact, the amount of times I haven't been ulted by a Zilean is kind of infuriating. You sit there and you're like, bro, you still have your ult? And you didn't ult me, we could have won that match. What the hell? What the hell, guy? But that's okay. But that's okay. Play the way you want to play, Zilean players. You do you. Aphelios, trash. I'm a rank 7 on Aphelios, and I'll move him up here to at least C tier, right? But his kit, you have to play him really, really well in order to do well on him. He doesn't have a lot going on in his kit. Only thing for stunning he has is his W, or I'm sorry, his W off of that one sticky gun, and that's a slow. But like if you have that out, you're probably not doing any damage because that's how his kit works. He's way too reliant on whatever he's using. Camille, one of the biggest problems with her is that she relies way too much on her damage being in her Q. Her Q is literally her everything. If you're not able to get her Q off, then most of your damage is negated. Evelynn, she just doesn't do a lot of damage. The moment they find you, her kit is super clunky. I'll at least move her into C tier, right, with these other kind of damagey type champs. But like, meh. And then same thing with Gangplank. If you can do well with his barrels, he can do decent, but like other than that, for the most part he's kind of mediocre or trash. Rell, I think she belongs right where she's at. Her damage is terrible. She can stun spam, so you would think I would want to put her up here with the B tiers, but so many people miss her freaking stuns and or just don't play her well. I'm just like, stop, what are you doing? Kayn, regular Kayn is just garbage. You are literally just pushing to get into your red or blue Kayn, right? Singed, He didn't belong in there. He's definitely at least a B champion. He can do decent damage. He throws you around. He can have lots of fun. He can run around. I've seen a Singed win before. I'm not sure why I put him all the way in the D tier, to be honest with you. Uh, he can do quite a bit. I would even. He's really annoying champion to play against. So I'll move him up here into the A tier with the Teemo. Let's see here. Soraka, she just, other than healing, she's really not useful. They delete her. Zoe, her kit feels incredibly awkward in Arena. She just, people are constantly in your face in Arena, and because of the way the maps are, a lot of times you can't even get her Q off properly unless you get a good sleep off. And if they're aware of your sleep, which your sleep is really slow, then you're just mediocre at best, right? Braum, he's very heavily reliant on other champions. I'll put him here with the Rel. Just meh. Ivern, reliant on other champions. Just meh. Jaina does really decent. I'm actually going to put her into the C tier. She doesn't do any damage, but she does do a lot of CC, just kind of like Alistar here. So I'll at least slide over there. Khazad. I got a lot of flack for putting Khazad down in the F tier. I have played against so many Khazadins, and every single time they did absolutely trash, and I've only seen one Khazadin that I've played against do somewhat decent, and he only made it to mid-game. I will put him at least in the B tier with the other squishy type champions. So I'll hear you calling. We'll do a little bit of revising here. You're right, Khazad does deserve to be higher than the bottom tier. I just feel like the amount of games he has a potential of losing. I guess F tier would be more like a champion that has no potential of winning, right? So E and F tier would be closer to like champions that are probably never going to win. So that isn't accurate for Khazad. He does have a chance of winning. I don't believe any champion has no chance of winning. The whole reason I revised this video, I hope that y'all enjoyed it. Oh, Aurora. I believe Aurora is going to be somewhere between A and B tier. She's probably going to end up in the B tier. The only thing that really saves her is the fact that she has that invisibility, but she relies heavily, and I mean heavily, on the ability to be able to, with your ally. She relies heavily on your ally. If you don't have a good or decent ally, you're probably going to lose with her. She just doesn't do enough damage by herself to accommodate for the lack of damage, if that makes any sense. So this is a revised form, a revised tier list. I didn't expect my first video to get so much views on it, or else I would have definitely taken more time. I would have made sure my audio was working. I apologize about that first video. Hope that y'all have a great day. Just know that I'm putting my face out there because I'm not scared of negative reviews or negative comments, right? I got really bad negative views, like to unlike ratio on my first video, which is understandable. Now that I'm looking at the list again, I kind of see why I got kind of a negative review on some of it, right? But like, this is a reformed list, and I believe that this list is more accurate. I hope that y'all enjoyed the video. Leave me a like, hit that subscribe button. I'm tempted to do some League of Legends champion raps or something. I'm not sure yet. I'm not sure what I want to do. But I hope that you all have a good day.